Well, this is a good way to start uh, all staff meeting. Um, I want to start off by uh, welcoming you to the first of what I hope is at least an annual meeting um, that I have with you to talk about what's going on in our agency. Unfortunately, not everyone can join us today because of work schedules. For example, our telecenter staff, who are very busy taking calls, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, can't join us. But this is all being recorded so that they can view it when they can, and y'all can view it as well if you want to go back and hear something that I said. Um, I also want to thank you all for submitting questions and comments to the Ask Ed email. We received over 80 questions and comments. I obviously can't answer or address all of those in this meeting. I am going to address some of them, but I will answer all of those, and we'll post the questions and answers so that everybody, all of y'all, can review them. And of course, we'll remove the names and departments to protect the innocent. So you can be prepared for that in about sometime next week, I believe. We'll get it all out. Um, I really want to start off by telling you that I truly recognize all of you all as unsung heroes. Um, Granted, we're not normally considered essential workers, and there are no billboards or commercials that thank you all for your work, but you've continued to serve our customers in spite of everything that's going on around us. You have held that as a priority. All of our customers, our vocational rehabilitation customers, our customers that are UI claims recipients, our beneficiaries, those that have fraud issues, our child care providers, our civil rights customers, all of our customers. And because of that, in my mind, you all are heroes. You are unsung heroes. And I want you to know that I recognize you as such. I think we all knew that TWC and the work that we did was important. I think the pandemic has demonstrated that TWC and the work that you all do is critical to the success of Texas and of Texans. I want you to remember something, and that is our work doesn't just provide some pay between jobs in the form of UI benefits or some help getting another job. Our work has been a lifeline to millions of Texans, and our work also helps people ensure that they have a brighter future as they move forward in their careers and in their personal paths. So I want you all to remember that it is more than just a job that we're doing. It is a critical function in state government. Um, we all know that 2020 has been unprecedented in so many ways and has affected our lives, both personally and professionally, and the lives of so many people. So many individuals have lost their jobs, have lost their businesses, they've lost their livelihood. COVID-19 has changed our way of doing business. Um, a large majority of us are remotely working, and we're coming up with different ways to communicate with each other. For example, I'll be honest with you, I believe that had it not been for COVID-19, we probably wouldn't be having this meeting right now. It would probably be a meeting that we would be having in a couple of years because we'd get to it, but not as quickly as we have. Of course, there have been some very difficult things that COVID-19 has brought us. For example, in the past 10 months, we have taken over 8 million phone calls concerning UI benefits. and innumerable other calls outside of our call centers. That 8 million is just to our call centers, but outside of our call centers, to almost every phone line in the agency from individuals that need help. We have processed over 6 million claims in 10 months from March to the end of December. And that's about 9.5 years worth of work. And we paid out over 38 billion with a B, billion dollars in unemployment insurance and pandemic benefits. So let me give you some perspective. In 2019, we received about 2 million UI calls. We processed roughly 738,000 claims, and we paid out about 2 billion in benefits. In addition to the 4 call centers that we have working 7 days a week, 7 hours a day, we contracted with 4 additional call centers to add an extra 1,800 individuals to help answer phones in now 8 call centers. We also had 1,000, at the peak, we had 1,000 volunteers from inside the agency and external organizations, primarily the Texas legislature, who volunteered their staff to help us work with some of our UI claimants. When we see that kind of volume, we also see the incidence of fraud increasing as well, and we're addressing that. In a typical year, we see about 5,000 identity theft fraud-related claims. In the past 16 months, we've identified more than 400,000 identity theft-related claims. That's an 80 times increase over normal operations. But we're rising to the occasion in both UI and in RID to address all of these problems. Our IT department, in coordination with our private sector partners, have increased our computing capacity so that we can handle the increased volumes of not only UI calls, but the different ways of doing business. In addition, IT, working with private sector, created a artificial intelligence-based chatbot in 4 days. From the time we said we need a chatbot to the time that we did a soft launch was 4 days, which was very impressive, in my opinion, in state government. Larry the chatbot, as we've affectionately named him after our previous executive director, Larry the chatbot started off answering 20 simple questions. Now, Larry answers over 100 common questions and receives information from our customers. To date, he has assisted over 1.5 million customers and answered over 6 million questions in 2 languages. Our child care and early learning staff have worked tirelessly to assist our child care providers to ensure that they can remain open to serve Texas families. And our internal administrative staff have done yeoman's work to ensure that we have the resources that we need to get our jobs done. Our VR staff, whose customers are often more susceptible to the effects of COVID-19 and to contracting COVID-19, have developed very creative ways to still serve those customers who need and want assistance during the pandemic, all while continuing to keep themselves and their customers safe. On the recovery side, and yes, we are engaged in the recovery of the economy. On the recovery side of our efforts, we've established a statewide contract for skills enhancement for Texas workers. In July of last year, we executed a contract, and since then, over 51,000 individuals have signed up and completed over 80,000 courses. In addition, in workforce, we established 2 small call centers to make outbound calls to our UI beneficiaries. To date, they've called almost 600,000 claimants, and they've helped 51,000 of those register and work in Texas. And though we don't require it, over 40,000 of those individuals that they've called have called back to say that they've returned to work. And we're very glad to hear that. I could go on forever about your accomplishments. And as you can tell, I'm very proud of them, and you should be proud of them too. This is something very significant that you all have done in very challenging times. But I want to go on and talk about some of the other things that are going on in the agency, some of the things that you all wrote me about and asked me about. And by the way, I do appreciate not only the questions that have come to Ask Ed, but often the calls I get or the messages I get in response to my bi-weekly, though I did kind of falter over the holidays in response to my bi-weekly messages to you all. I do appreciate all those messages. Several of you wrote me with messages concerning the protocols for returning to the office, teleworking, and vaccines as they relate to COVID-19. So let me address some of these questions. First, regarding vaccines, I want to be clear that we will not require TWC employees to receive a vaccine. I would encourage you to, but it will not be mandated, and it is your choice. No TWC employee will be made to receive a vaccine. This is the governor's stance for the state of Texas, and until we hear otherwise, this is TWC's position as well. To ensure the health and safety of those folks that are having to return to the office, and by the way, as you can tell, I'm in the office, and I'm in the office every workday and some weekends as well. As long as I'm asking you to be in the office, I'll be in the office too, and I have been since the beginning, since COVID started, so since mid-March. But our risk and security management staff, our human resources, and our infrastructure staff are taking extraordinary steps to ensure that we're closely following federal and state health official guidelines concerning disinfecting of workspace, PPE, personal protective equipment, personal screening, and other requirements to ensure that when we do return to the office, when you all do return to the office, or those of us that are in the office, when we come into the office, that we're coming into a safe environment. Several of you work in our board offices, and I know you've expressed some concern to me about that. Let me tell you that I have personally spoken to each board's executive director, and our workforce staff is working with each board to ensure that the return to work in those offices is safe as well. And I want to assure you that the feedback that I've gotten and the responses I've gotten from all 28 executive directors in the boards is that their priority is for the safety of staff and customers. COVID-19 has changed many of the things that we do and how we do them and where we work as well. We now have about 85% of our staff teleworking full-time and another 7% that are teleworking part of the week because their work requires them to be in the office some of the rest of the time. Each division, each department in each division has its own duties and responsibilities in serving our customers. And that means that more people will have to be returning to the office across the state. I want to assure you that I personally and that the division directors are working to ensure that the environment you return to, the environment that you go into, is as safe and healthy as it can be, and that you have the tools necessary to ensure your safety and your health and the safety and health of our customers. You should continue, however, to work with your division directors to see if teleworking is an option for you, even if it's part-time. Long-term, it is my desire that TWC will look at changing how we conduct our business. The past year has shown that we can very effectively conduct our business remotely, serving our customers, both internal and external, and that we can be as productive, you all can be as productive or more productive working from home, and that it's beneficial to you to be able to work from home, not only for your own personal safety and health, but also for the safety and health of your families. I've already, and you've seen it in the messages I've sent out, I've already said that we're going to continue to telework through the end of May. In April, just as I committed to you in November, we would decide and put out a message in December. In April, I'll work with the executive team and we'll decide how we continue teleworking through the summer. Long-term plans, as I've just said, are that we will be changing our work structures so that we'll have a different mix of telework and in-office work available after COVID, post-COVID. That's going to take a lot of planning, both from the perspective of the infrastructure that we have, the work that we're doing, our physical space back here. So it's not something that we're just going to turn on, but the commitment you have from me is it's something that we're going to be looking at because one, I believe it's beneficial to a good, healthy work-life balance. And two, I think it's another tool that we'll have, we TWC will have to recruit and retain staff. So keep listening for more information on that. I'll be working with the executive team, but the commitment is in April, let me reiterate it, in April, I'll get together with the executive team and we will decide and announce in May what our immediate plans are for the summer. And then long-term, we'll continue to keep you informed about what we're doing with regard to telework. Most of you should remember the survey of employee excellence that we all took, or a large number of us took back in February. It's conducted biannually, every 2 years, in coordination with the University of Texas Institute for Organizational Excellence. You may recall that we made a push to achieve a higher completion rate, and I personally asked you to please complete the survey, and I committed to you that we as an agency would do a much better job examining and using the data that we got from those survey results. Well, you did your job with approximately 74% of the staff replying to that survey, and I appreciate it. And now we're doing our job. So let me tell you what we've been doing. First, the agency as a whole, the management team as a whole, and each division reviewed the results of the survey. And then a lot of divisions conducted focus groups working with training and development. Our own training and development staff developed focus groups to determine what things they needed to concentrate on and how they were going to make changes to address those items that were raised in the survey of employee engagement. The second lowest scoring item was internal communication. And I immediately reacted to that, and division directors as well have reacted to that, in that because of that, I wanted to communicate more information to you, more than I had been even. So we've implemented a system where I'm sending out messages every 2 weeks. This meeting is an attempt for me to also enhance the communication. Several of the divisions have developed internal communication methods, and we're going to continue to look at improving our internal communication so that you know what's going on in your division and in your agency. Overall, our scores were better than a lot of agencies and were well within a very acceptable range to the University of Texas, their general metrics. But that's really not good enough for us, not good enough for me. I'd like our scores to be better. So we're going to continue to look at the results of that survey and at other feedback that we get and look at ways to address and improve how we operate as an agency. And that's a commitment that you have from me. A lot of you wrote questions to ask Ed. You can go to Larry the chatbot, but that's about UI right now. wrote questions to ask Ed about career ladders, about pay, about returning to work. We've already talked about returning to work. I've talked about vaccines. Let me talk a little bit about pay and career ladders. While I very much would like to implement an across-the-board cost of living pay raise, that's not something that's within my authority or the agency's authority. That's something that's within the legislature's authority. So we'll have to deal with that. The legislature will have to deal with that, and then we'll work within the confines that they give us. However, several of you raised the issue of pay and career advancement as it pertains to you or as it pertains to smaller work groups. And those are things that we can look at. Look, I recognize that pay and career advancement are important to you. They're important to your family, okay? So that's why I've asked HR and finance to conduct a study to determine how we compare to other state agencies and to the private sector regarding pay for the work that you all do. We will look at this information and see what we have within our authority to make changes to adjust that. In addition, the agency is going to develop a more comprehensive, clear career path for all employees that will include clear career ladders so that you'll know, if I do this, this is where I can advance within a particular career path. These things will take time. I'll tell you right now, these things will take time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. This agency has been very focused and will continue to be very focused on serving our customers. But let me assure you that you are my customer, and I will ensure that your needs are met just as you are ensuring that our external customers' needs are met. I've appreciated all your feedback, both to the Ask Ed email, which we'll use again, not just for these broad meetings, but we'll use again throughout the year. I've also appreciated the notes that I've received from you. They're very encouraging. The questions that I get are thoughtful questions. With that, I'm going to end these prepared remarks, and I would like to answer a few of the questions that I've received that I think were especially notable. Those of y'all that asked these questions, I hope I'm not going to embarrass you, because I am gonna call you out by name because I believe you deserve credit for these questions. So, for example, regarding telework, I got a question from Ms. Van Howe in training and development. And Jill asked, as we continue on this stretch of teleworking, what are the plans to continue this? I'm concerned about health issues and going back to work, going back to the office, not work because you all are working, but going back to the office with the numbers so high, it scares me. Okay, so many of you all have asked the same question, and I think I've answered it in previous messages to you as well as in this message, but let me repeat it a little bit. Our priority is my priority as well is protecting your health and well-being. I know that we've got to return to the office, and you know we've got to return to the office for some of the things that we do. But we're doing everything we can, and I've already pointed out that our infrastructure folks, that our risk and security management folks, that our HR folks are doing everything we can to ensure that you have the tools you need, the protective equipment, the PPE, et cetera, that you need to ensure that your return to the office is one that you can be comfortable with. Now remember, until May, for a lot of you all, you can still continue to telework, but for several others, it's time to return to the office. And that's who we're really focusing on, making sure that you have what you need to be safe in the office as you return to serve our customers who need face-to-face contact, especially out in the field. There's a question about Wagner-Peyser staff in general. Bruce Callison in Workforce Solutions Alamo asked, I was hoping for some kind of update about the status of the Wagner Pizer staff. Those of us in workforce centers are having all kinds of things to worry about during the pandemic, including the fact that my staff and myself are also facing the prospect of losing our jobs. Any info would be appreciated. Stay safe. So Bruce, first of all, thanks for your wish that we stay safe. Um, a lot of employees ask questions like this. A lot of the ES staff working in the boards ask questions like this. Let me start off by thanking the ES staff, all the ES staff, for volunteering to assist our UI co-workers during the peak. And a lot of those ES staff have now been returned to their normal work assignments because we are engaged and engaging in the recovery efforts as well. Back in February of last year, the Department of Labor published a final rule removing the requirement that states must hire merit staff for employment service activities. So the bottom line is we don't have to. We still can, but we don't have to. We can use contract staff. And there was discussion about what we, TWC, in the state of Texas needed to do. Well, all those discussions came to a screeching halt in mid-March when all hands were on deck to deal with COVID-19. We will take that issue up, but let me assure you that your employment, your retirement, your service to TWC are all things that will be considered in our decision-making as we move forward. And as we move to make decisions or make recommendations, because this is something that we'll have to discuss with our commissioners and present to the commissioners because it is a policy change, I'll make sure that you continue to stay informed about what's going on. There's been no final decision. There have been no recommendations made yet. But as we move forward and formulate that, I'll make sure that you stay informed about that. But your hard work and efforts early on to assist UI are well noted. Deborah Harrell in RID asked a question. Her question is, will TWC be setting up an enhanced fraud unit to deal with UI fraud? And what is the estimated percentage the commission has on how many claims appear to be fraudulent? Deborah, thank you for your question. Let me start off with the second part of that question. You know, we don't know what we don't know. I've heard from experts that the fraudsters change their methods about once every 6 to 10 days. And we're dealing with all that very successfully. I mentioned some statistics earlier. You know, we've, in the past 16 months, seen over 400,000 fraudulent claims due to identity theft. That's about 6.1% of our total claims, the 6.8 million claims that we've taken. Now there are other forms of fraud that are occurring, and we're detecting those, or those are being brought to our attention, and we're immediately addressing those. But not knowing what we don't know, it's difficult for me to be able to say it is this percent of the total number of claims. Concerning creating an enhanced fraud unit, you know, I think that's a good idea. But I also think that our existing staff and the staff that we're adding, we're trying to hire more staff in that area and contract for some people to help in that area. I think the entire team is turning into an enhanced fraud unit. The entire RID division and other divisions that are engaged in it, UI, are turning into an enhanced fraud unit. So we're going to continue to put our efforts into providing the tools necessary to our existing staff and the existing structure to focus on our fraud efforts. But let me tell you that the idea of maybe an enhanced fraud team isn't completely off the table if it turns out that that's what's going to be necessary to really address some of the fraud cases that we're getting. So thank you for your question. Stephen Moore with Workforce Solutions in Rosenberg says, I'm one of the UI volunteers that have been working on this assignment for the past 10 months. I'll be retiring on December 31st, and we still have many people who want to help in UI, why not keep a number of those volunteers in the large workforce development network to keep working on the project? This will help UI get back to normal by 2022. Well, first of all, Stephen, thank you for your service in helping us. And also, I wish you well in your upcoming retirement and your retirement planning. That's something that I think we all look forward to after a long career, and it is well deserved for you. So, it's a good idea to have a cadre. It was great to have the ES staff with that knowledge that could jump in immediately and help our UI staff. And it's one of the things that I thought was very beneficial to us. But as I've mentioned, we are engaged in the recovery, and we, TWC, with the 28 boards, are going to play a key role and are playing a key role in the recovery of the economy. And it is as important for us to get the economy started again and for us to play our role in starting the economy as it is for us to address the UI demand that still exists. Because until we get the economy started again, and until we help those individuals that need our help to get a job and those businesses that need our help to find qualified individuals, we're not going to be able to get people off of pandemic assistance or unemployment assistance. So while your suggestion is well taken and will be considered, I really need you and the ES staff to kind of shift your attention to the task at hand at helping with the recovery. So I got a couple of questions along this line. This particular one is from an employee in our Central Texas telecenter. And Anita, I'm going to apologize. I'm going to mess up your last name. Ablez. Anita asks, why don't we stop using Confederate Heroes Day as a skeleton holiday? Maybe move it to Juneteenth or Emancipation Day. So Anita, thanks for asking that question. The list of state holidays, of all holidays, including Confederate Heroes Day and other skeleton holidays, is something that the Texas legislature and not TWC controls. Now, I will tell you that there is proposed legislation to make changes to Confederate Heroes Day, and we'll follow the legislation and report on it as it happens. I do want to also note that Juneteenth is already a state holiday. As a matter of fact, Texas was the first state to recognize it with the state holiday back in 1980. So it's a good idea. It was a very good idea. We have Juneteenth as a state holiday, and I'm sure the legislature will be looking at Confederate Heroes Day and other holidays for us as well. So we'll wait and see what the legislature does. But thank you for your question. Also got a question from Aaron Morris with Workforce Editing. And Aaron asks, Texas government code states that a state agency may allow each employee 30 minutes during normal working hours for exercise 3 times a week. At this time, when many of us are working from home and having trouble maintaining an adequate work-life balance, wellness initiatives such as time off to exercise seem especially important. Is there any possibility of TWC offering wellness time to its employees? Well, I appreciate the question. You know, we're going to be challenged to be able to offer wellness time right now, considering all the work that we have ahead of us and all the work that we're having to deal with. I will tell you that TWC, in my opinion, has been very generous when it comes to using emergency leave to help our employees who have either tested positive, contracted, or have come in contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID. Since mid-March, we've authorized over 7,103 days of emergency leave for our staff. So I'd be a little hard pressed to, in addition to that, offer the extra 30 minutes 3 times a week for exercise. However, I will note that several individuals who do telework tell me that they use the time that they save not having to commute in the morning and in the afternoon and at lunchtime for exercise. So I would encourage everybody to look at their work schedule. Work-life balance is very important, but look at their work schedule and see if they can take advantage of not having to commute or drive to lunch someplace, and use those times to refresh your mind and maybe refresh your body as well. So Patricia Cooper Barnes from Workforce Solutions Northline asks, with everything going on, how safe are our colleagues in Austin? First of all, Patricia, thank you very much for your question. I happen to be one of your colleagues in Austin, considering that my office, when I look out the window, overlooks the north lawn and the north entrance to the Capitol. I'm assuming that you're talking about the protest and the general unrest that happened this past summer and was expected to happen during the inauguration. Well, first, I'm pleased to report that it was very quiet during the inauguration. I still came into the office that day, and as I looked out, it was incredibly quiet, and I felt very safe. And I think the rest of our employees here in Maine felt very safe as well. Our risk and security management team is in constant communication with DPS, and they, with that feedback, take steps to ensure our safety, not just here in Maine and not just my safety, but those folks that are working in the Annex, in Trinity, and in any of our other downtown office buildings as well as Austin office buildings. Here at our main campus, when we suspect something may be a little threatening, we have staff move into covered garages, we close garage doors, we secure our buildings with card key access only. I feel, and I think we feel very safe being here. But thank you for your question and for your concern. And then the last question I want to read is from Justine Starling of the North Texas Telecenter. Many of our folks, this is not Justine's question, but I got several questions about this. Many of our folks who are working in the telecenters wrote questions asking, when are they going to be able to go back to a more normal Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 work schedule? You know, right now our telecenters are open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That includes our 4 call centers and our 4 contract call centers. It is my opinion, and it was my recommendation to expand those hours, and it is my opinion that we're probably going to have to continue that for some time. However, I know that UI Division Management is looking at ways to give our call center staff time off, a weekend, if you will, though it may not be on a Saturday or a Sunday all the time, but the time off to be able to spend with their families. It is very disconcerting when you cannot spend time with a family member because of work. I know that personally. And that's why we'll work to ensure that you have time off to spend with family, that you'll have time off to recharge your batteries. But we have to continue to remain focused to serve the millions of Texans that need us right now, that need us as a lifeline. Their unemployment insurance benefits, their ability to get benefits is what puts food on the table for their families. It's what pays mortgages and rents. It's what pays for utilities. So I appreciate the challenge that you're facing, but I also appreciate very much the hard work that you're doing and that you have been doing since the middle of March. So with that, I'm going to conclude this particular meeting. I hope to have another meeting with you either sometime in September or in January. So it'll be an annual event. I haven't quite decided if it will be annual based on a fiscal year or annual based on a calendar year. I've been in state government for over 34 years. So for me, August to September, that year change means a little bit more than the December to January year change. But I do appreciate all of everybody's hard work. And I encourage you to continue not only the hard work, but continue to be safe, continue to remain healthy, and continue to remain focused on serving our neighbors, our fellow Texans. So with that, I'll conclude this meeting, and I thank you very much for taking the time to join me.